Now, Scott Mills is our special guest, and he is a marketing guy out of Nashville. And you've got a ton of success in your background. You worked for Lifeway. You were vice president of Lifeway for a while. You've bring in, I think it's 90,000 number one songs, 90,372 number one songs came through your desk, something like that. It's a big
lot of
number,
songs, bro. I don't even know if there's been that many songs.
but over 100 number ones, right?
60 number ones as a
Okay.
radio
Nice.
back in the old days. Yeah.
Back in the old days. See, in all radio people, we end up sticking together. It's not that we want to; it's that the universe says we have to. That's what we do. So, Courageous. Emilee and I go to watch Courageous in the theater, and Emilee, you can jump in on this too. But as we're leaving the theater, and we had a really strong relationship with Family Christian Stores at the time. I said, let's run over to Family Christian Stores and see how many Courageous products they have. And I said, I bet you they're going to have 4. And I named the 4, and we went inside, and they actually had 5, and I can't remember what the 5th one was, but they had the little promise ring, they had the resolution, and all that.
Yeah.
And so, how much of that world can you talk about as far as the co-marketing with films to help fund the next one? And not everybody's just getting rich off this. A lot of this is funding that actually helps grow the industry. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Courageous is an anomaly. If you go way back there in that year, no one has ever probably since then been able to capitalize. Number one, all those Christian bookstores are no longer open. So
I know.
So what you did at Family and even Lifeway on Courageous had a Courageous corner. Like they literally branded a whole part of the store around Courageous.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had all that stuff you mentioned, the resolutions, the books, the Bible studies.
Yeah,
All that,
Yeah.
which was the point of those movies. Being in the Christian world, this is a differentiator for movies that aren't in the Christian world, is that there's a purpose beyond the theater, and people walk in to see a movie, but the goal of most filmmakers is that we want them to engage God's word after the movie, and so it
Right.
launches into what they hope is a follow up, engagement into whatever that topic was: prayer, marriage, all
Yep.
kinds of things that have come out since then. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
Fireproof
father.
was kind of like the trailblazer for that, and Courageous. I think that they learned from Fireproof, and then they really spiked the football on Courageous. I thought they did a great job with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't happen. You got to really, as a filmmaker, that has to be your purpose, because those Bible studies were written a year before the movie came out in a room with the Kendrick brothers and writers, thinking about, before the movie was even finished, here's what we put in the movie as themes for a Bible study on purpose, so that people would engage Bible study. And people don't make movies that way, except those guys. And so therefore, sometimes a movie comes out like, hey, let's make a Bible study on the movie we made. It's just not as impactful. Maybe by the Holy Spirit himself saying you weren't intentional about using this movie to get people into God's word. I don't know. I don't want to
Yeah.
pass
Yeah.
judgment.
We've
But I
got
think-
a 6 weeks with the Bible Idiot study guide, because I mean, like, take Erwin Lutzer just as one example. I mean, we had him for 30 minutes, and then we were having so much fun. He stayed. I have 67 minutes of Erwin Lutzer dropping gold. He makes maybe 11, 12 minutes of the Bible Idiots film. So we wanted to use all that cutting room stuff and take people deeper into the same topics. But it was hard to make after the movie. I think pre-planning it would have been really great. Emilee, what's your take on some of this stuff?
Well, it's really interesting because the whole entertainment industry has really changed dramatically. And it seems like the consistent thing is it just keeps changing. I mean, from year to year, decade to decade, it's changing so fast. Years ago, we didn't have Christian movies per se. I think culture just accepted that biblical worldview, even if they weren't necessarily Christians. Culturally, it was embraced and accepted. That's no longer the case. And so, as you've been working in, whether it's music, whether it's filmmaking, whatever sort of entertainment people are seeking, what are you seeing as the biggest change in the way that movies are actually put together, effective movies? When you're looking at movies, what is it that you see that makes you go, that's good, that will draw people?
So that's a great question. And I think probably we could go a long time just on this topic right here. But it's not just about the movie itself, although we all can watch a movie and decide whether it's good or not.
Hmm.
We see lots of movies that aren't good, and generally it's poor production, or they didn't have enough money to do that the right way, or
Emily, you can
what.
drop your amens in right now. This is Emily's big complaint.
Preach.
You just hit all three of her big arguments about Christian movies.
Yeah, but it's people trying their best to do what God's called them to do, and so
Amen.
you have to, as a Christian, you take that perspective. The world doesn't care. The world cares about making money, and so they got these Christian movies that draw an audience and put people in the theater, and therefore make money. Some of them make money, and they like that, so they make more because they're like that audience. It's like horror movies. There's an audience for horror movies, and they make a bunch of them really cheaply because that audience, they don't really care that it's cheap. They just like the movies, and so it's similar to Christian movies. There's an audience that likes to see their faith on the screen,
Yeah.
and so they're very gracious, and they go to movies that aren't really made very well sometimes, but it perpetuates growth and the quality. And it's not just quality of the movie; it's quality of the marketing. Like we have a movie coming out in theaters tomorrow. I don't know when this is dated. I don't know when this will be aired.
This is going to drop today as soon as
Okay.
Mike Shaw gets it edited and posted. Yeah, tomorrow on Friday,
Tomorrow. Yeah.
April 28th. This is April 27th, Thursday when we're recording. But Big George Foreman. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It was amazing about Big George Foreman. That's a great story, obviously true story. It's a powerful movie. It's made very, very well. George Tillman Jr. is a director. He directed a ton of Hollywood films. He didn't come at it from I make Christian movies. He is a
That's good.
believer, has an incredible story behind his faith, but he's coming in, incredibly talented guy. And he makes this really great movie, and he had plenty of budget to work with. Forrest
That's
Whitaker's in the movie.
Key. Yeah. Very helpful.
It's the quality of acting in a movie.
Yeah.
But here's the amazing thing, and I wish more Christian movies could do this. But we talk to churches. That's what we do in my day job about movies, publicity, radio, digital, social, all the different aspects. But this movie is a priority for the studio, and so they really spent a lot on marketing. So if you ever watch ESPN, if you watch the NHL playoffs, Chris, I know you're an NHL
Oh yeah.
fan,
Yep.
you probably see George Foreman commercials.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens there is all the work we do to engage the faith audience is now validated because people see that trailer on a mainstream place, or they read about it in a newspaper or out hear it on the radio in a place where they just normally listen. And now it just changes how all that effort is done. So when a movie can do that, it changes its trajectory. And so we're about to find out if that was actually a working method or not. But what usually happens in Christian movies is they don't have the money to go on ESPN.
You're right.
And so it's always grassroots. It's just grassroots promotion, as you know.
It's kind of encouraging though, because you're talking about now going directly to the fans and starting that initial direct contact with fans versus having to go through those influencers like the church leaders and the churches and so on.
Influencers are great, but it's also nice to have the fans in charge.
That's a good sign that you're now to the point where it's like, let's just go directly to the people, isn't it? Is that a measure at all?
Absolutely. And what you're seeing, another example of that is Angel Studios.
Yeah.
And you may be familiar with The Chosen. It's a great show.
Yeah.
And phenomenal show. It took me a long time to start watching it because probably like you, Emilee, I'm like, I don't want to watch another Christian thing. But I started watching it and then I couldn't stop because it just Jesus, how he is in that show is just phenomenal. Do movies reflect culture, or does culture reflect movies?
Good question.
Because I think back in those days, Christianity and our faith was more part of everyday life, but today it's not.
Yeah.
Part of everyday. It's not part of. It's part of our everyday life, but not part of the culture's life. And so, in fact, sometimes you may feel like you're under attack as a Christian today. But that's another topic for another podcast.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a different culture. So there's been a lot of people that are Christians who made movies and really tried hard to make it not be a Christian movie. But the problem they always have is I still want to reach the Christian audience. So as soon as they begin marketing to the Christian audience, it becomes a Christian movie because they have to say it is in order to get the
Right.
Christian audience to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Or what they do is they don't say a word, but they drop $20 million on advertising. That's the only way to do it if you don't want to go reach the Christian audience, because then you'll reach them through media and they'll see it out there in the media world. So it's just nobody has that kind of money generally in this world, in this
Mm-hmm.
space, to transcend. I don't want this to be labeled as a Christian movie, but I got Christian values in it. I got things in it that I want to put out there. So it's just this battle of, I want to be a Christian. I don't want to be a Christian movie, but I need the Christians.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
and so it becomes a really more of a marketing thing than it does. What is this film?
Yeah.
What is, is it a Christian? Does it have a Christian message that people that are Christians would love? Or will it be an outreach type of movie? Which honestly, I get frustrated with people that call movies outreach or not, because who are we to say that when people come to see Courageous, they walk out and get saved and remove their tattoos from their body because they've had a life change and they don't
Yeah.
want those anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, there's people that didn't know Jesus, people that hated people come in and find love.
Yeah.
That's what we're
You
trying
go
to do
to
with churches
you
and
go
with
to
movies and with
yeah,
podcasts.
it's a movie
Yeah.
for the church choir, but it's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
people that don't know Jesus are reached by them.
Yeah.
So, I think as a filmmaker, you have to wrestle with that, but you really need to land on who you are going to be. And
Well,
if
and
you're
then
going
when you
to
land there, Scott, you have to be okay with it. You have to be okay with the results that come, whether good, bad, or otherwise. I mean, I was criticized by name in a publication out of California for putting too much Jesus in Colors of Character. I think the quote is Director Danielson completely missed an opportunity for civil rights promotion. It was all, you've seen the movie. You were part of the marketing team with the movie. I to this day don't have 1 ounce of regret. That's Steve's story. The story
right,
is Jesus. And then there's people in Steve's world that have come to know Jesus because of the movie. Done. My work here is done. I mean, pit boss, I'm out.
right,
And so that balance between wanting to share the love of Jesus through osmosis versus going direct to the gospel presentation. Like there's a Christian filmmaker out there, I'm not going to say by name, but almost every one of his movies are just cringy. And you watch the movie and it's just like all of a sudden Stephen Baldwin will do a camera turn and then just share the straight gospel out of context for the storytelling. And it's like, where is the fine line? And is it a constant moving line of we need to just share Jesus through osmosis, through regular storytelling, versus we need this to be spot on gospel and I want somebody to come to know Jesus through this film? Are you seeing filmmakers struggle with that? And are you seeing some people shoot themselves in the foot on either side of this?
Well, I think people have got to understand where we are as a culture, because if movies can impact culture, then I don't care if you're a Christian movie or not, you have the power to do something good in the world by having a movie that can impact culture positively. And we believe that the best way to impact culture positively is through the message of Jesus. And so the gospel. And so
Mm-hmm.
as a Christian, why would that not be your number one message?
Right.
So I think they wrestle with it. They don't always think of it that way. They're just making a story they think will, be successful and recoup its money so they can make another one,
Mm-hmm.
But because not all filmmakers are resolute with the calling God has on their life of, God's called me to use movies to make an impact on culture. And I see that with the more established, like the Kendricks, Irwins, like they're working hard to impact culture. Jesus
Mm-hmm.
Revolution was a great movie of historical stuff that is still relevant today, and inspired people today to a $50 million box office that will continue to resonate beyond the theater as we remember that what happened back in the 70s. But I think a lot of it is filmmakers just got to understand who they are, what they were called to be, and go make content that reflects that, whether it's a Christian movie or whether it's the next Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or somewhere in between.
Scott Mills is our special guest. Faith faithfilmfan.com is the location of the new project. It's where you and I and Emilee and all of us can get together and just love on movies.
I want to know what your favorite movie is. Doesn't have to be a Christian movie. Just what is Scott Mills? Who is he? What's your favorite movie? But more importantly, because that's just the curiosity part of it, more importantly, why? Why does that movie, why does that story connect with you so much?
Okay. I'm going to answer that with 3 movies. I hope.
Okay.
My guy.
We can go there, yeah.
One of them is probably one of my favorite, what I would call a faith film that I got to work on. And I'll tell you about that one last. I grew up in the Midwest. Joliet, Illinois is where I grew up.
Been there.
So not probably far from where you guys are there. But and so one of my favorite movies of all time was the movie Rudy. I know it may not be what you were expecting, but I'm a huge sports fan, and Rudy is from Joliet. And so when I saw that movie, and he went to Joliet Catholic School and all that, which I did not go there, but I knew it, knew the football team. A lot of people went to Notre Dame from Joliet, played for the Bears, all that stuff. And so I was a big fan of that movie because I recognized where he's from initially, but then I just loved the underdog story. And so that's one of my all-time favorite movies. And then also being from the Midwest, and another sports movie was the movie Hoosiers.
I was going to say Hoosiers.
And maybe that's stereotypical of people my age from that part of the world, but but I like that movie. Was also inspiring for the same reasons. Just a good comeback story, and
and both are based on true stories. That's kind of ironic too.
Yeah, and I played basketball in Illinois. Indiana was right there, and just a lot of connections to that story. But those are probably 2 of my favorite non-Christian films.
All right, here comes the big show-stopping number. What you got?
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with the story of Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, you did work on that. I remember that.
With Tom Hanks playing Mr. Rogers. I learned so much about Mr. Rogers in that campaign, and he was a remarkable man that I really came to admire because of who he was and what he stood for and how he did it, and how he, really espoused Christian values a ton in his personal life, in his show, and how he even challenged things in his own way, like racism and things like that we all know about. How he talked to kids and how kids responded to him. So anyway, I just loved that movie. I loved how Tom Hanks portrayed him and what that movie was all about. So that was one of my favorites to work on. And really, campaigns that we work on can be a lot of fun. They can be stressful. They can be, depends on who is there leading it and who else is on the team. That was one of the most joyful teams because it was Mr. Rogers. And so every day was like, have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful day.
Won't
today,
you be my neighbor? Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love it.
Got to take off the jacket, put on the sweater. You got to take off the shoes and put on the slippers or the tennis shoes or whatever. Yeah, fantastic.
Sneakers. All right. Any final thoughts you want to leave with us today?
No, thank you guys for the conversation. I've enjoyed it very much. It's an exciting time to be in media. I'm excited about your podcast and just what God has in store for you guys with that. And so just glad to be a part of it today and enjoy talking about movies. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this was our introductory, just kind of getting to know each other, our new equipment, our new show. Our new show's just getting started. But, Scott, we're hoping that you come back on at least monthly and talk about this month in Christian films. I think that would be fantastic. Again, faithfilmfan.com is the website. And that's that. Tell us real quick. We only got a minute left with you.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk all day. We have the time. You just don't. You got people waiting for you at the top of the hour. Tell us a little bit about I lost my train of thought now. It just escaped me. That happens. It was I know, right on the air live. We can't stop this either.
Here's how you can engage Faith Film Fan. Maybe that's where you were going.
Oh, yeah. The podcast. You got a really cool podcast host. You got some stuff going. Just uncork the elevator pitch for Faith Film Fan, because I think that Christians want to be a part of the movement, if you want to call it that, or the brand of being a fan of faith films and having now a location, a podcast, all of it. I mean, you guys really, I think it's so cool. Tell us that elevator 2-minute thing.
Yeah, so Faith Film Fan has just a few things for fans. One, it has all the new releases that are out now and coming out, so it gives you an update on what's coming next. So as soon as they become official, we know about a lot of things in the works, but
Mm-hmm.
once they become official, a press release comes out, they go on our website so you can see what new releases are coming to theaters, or even in some cases streaming. We list out popular movies from the past. So you can kind of look through to discover and look through where you can find them. Like if you want to find out where Facing the Giants is now, you can go there and it'll give you a link to where it's streaming or where
That's
you can
awesome.
find it. So it gives you that. We have movie news, so you can read all kinds of news features on what's happening in movie world. We have a podcast, as you mentioned. Rick
Yeah.
Altizer is a podcast host. So it's very,
Awesome.
very new. The podcast is only maybe 10 episodes out now. So we do 2 a month. So you can stay tuned to that and check that out on the website. You can also be a fan and go there and sign up to be a fan. So we
Yeah.
just click the button, join our email list. What happens when you get on our email is we send you that same content via email. And whenever there's a new movie coming out, like George Foreman tomorrow, you'll get an email the day before, just letting you know, reminding you that the movie's coming out the next day. And so those are just some of the things that we do to keep you informed about what's new in faith films.
Yeah.
This has been a sample of No Apology with Emilee and Chris. For full episodes and other content, go to our website, freshroadmedia.com. And thank you for sharing and subscribing.